My daughter called it care. I called it control. Every morning, the scent of my beloved coffee was replaced by Kale's smoothies, my cherished memories by stagnant energy. At 69, I was being purified, managed, and slowly, gently erased within the walls of my own home. This is the story of how I finally fought back. The ghost of coffee haunted my mornings. It was a phantom aroma, a memory of dark, rich brew that used to fill this kitchen, the one I'd shared with my husband, Stan, for over 40 years. We bought this little house in Maple Creek with flour-dusted hands and calloused fingers. The result of 4 decades of my life spent at the Schulz bread factory. Every floorboard, every scuff on the wall was a testament to a life built, not inherited. It was my sanctuary. Until a year ago, when it became my daughter's wellness retreat. Nadine, my 42-year-old daughter, had moved back in after her divorce, bringing with her a new career as a family energy healer and a gentle tyranny that smelled of sage and condescension. This morning, like every morning for the past 6 months, the ghost of coffee was vanquished by the whir of a blender. I sat at the oak table Stan and I had picked out, my hands clasped, waiting. Nadine glided over, a beatific smile on her face, and placed a bowl of beige mush in front of me. Quinoa, with a sprinkle of chia seeds. Beside it, a glass of lukewarm water with a slice of lemon floating sadly within. "To start your day with a clean vibrational slate, Mom," she said, her voice soft and airy. "We can't have processed grains and acidic coffee clogging up your energy field, can we?" I looked at the bowl. It looked like birdseed. I was 69 years old. I had survived a war in the old country, immigration with 2 suitcases and $50, and 40 years of 4 AM shifts at the factory. I felt my energy field was probably as clogged as it was ever going to get, and it had served me just fine. But I nodded. I picked up the spoon. "Thank you, dear." Each spoonful was a dutiful, tasteless swallow. My mind drifted to the simple, profound joy of a slice of rye toast, heavy with butter, its warmth seeping into my fingers, or the sharp, comforting bitterness of a proper cup of coffee, black as night. These weren't just foods, they were rituals, the small, earned pleasures of a long life. Nadine had labeled them toxins. She called it love. She called it care. She said she was extending my life, purifying my vessel. But as I sat there in the sterile silence of my own kitchen, a silence once filled with the crackle of the radio and Stan's off-key humming, I felt a deep, gnawing loneliness. I wasn't a person being cared for. I was a project being managed, and I was beginning to feel like a ghost in my own home. Nadine's purification project soon expanded beyond my diet. It became a full-scale assault on my history. One afternoon, I came home from a walk to find her in the living room, holding my old photo albums. The worn, leather-bound books were filled with faded pictures of Stan, of a younger me with laugh lines I hadn't earned yet, of Nadine as a gap-toothed child on a tricycle. "Mom, I found a wonderful service that digitizes old photos," she announced, her smile unwavering. "We need to clear out all this stagnant energy. These objects hold onto old, dense vibrations." Before I could protest, she had stacked them in a cardboard box destined for the service. I never saw them again. Next went Stan's armchair, the one with the permanent indent from his shoulders. Its crime was being a vortex of grief energy. She replaced it with 2 stiff, white cushions on the floor meant for meditation. The true chill, however, came when she began to systematically dismantle my friendships. My dearest friend, Maria, whose family had emigrated from Poland the same year as ours, was my last remaining tether to the world outside Nadine's wellness bubble. We had navigated this new country together, celebrated births, mourned losses, and for 40 years our coffee dates were a sacred, unbreakable ritual. One Tuesday, the phone rang. I was in the garden, and through the open window I heard Nadine's voice, a smooth, professional veneer over ice. "I'm sorry, Maria," she said. "Mom is in a deep healing phase right now. She needs to be surrounded by a quiet, positive, energetic environment to facilitate her process. I'll let her know you called." I dropped my trowel and hurried inside, my heart pounding with a sudden, cold dread. What was that? Was that Maria? Nadine was already wiping the phone with a disinfecting cloth. "It was," she said calmly. I explained that you're not available for social calls. Her energy is very heavy, Mom, full of gossip and old-world anxieties. It's not conducive to the work we're doing. The work we're doing. I stared at her, the words catching in my throat. She's my friend, Nadine. We were going for coffee. Coffee is a stimulant that agitates the nervous system, and Maria's attachment to her old, unhealthy patterns is a drain on your auric field, she recited, as if reading from a script. I'm protecting you. You should be thanking me. The finality in her tone was a slammed door in my face. It wasn't just about coffee or chairs anymore. She was building a wall around me, brick by gentle, patronizing brick. My home, once a haven, now felt like a beautifully curated prison. I was being isolated, not for my health, but for her convenience. I was her most challenging and most important client. And clients, I was beginning to understand, were not allowed to have a life of their own. The final straw wasn't a single piece, but a whole rotten bale of hay. My 70th birthday was approaching, a milestone that felt both monumental and, under Nadine's regime, terrifyingly abstract. For weeks, I gathered my courage like loose change. Finally, one evening, as she was preparing a pitcher of cucumber-infused water, I made my stand. Nadine, I began, my voice smaller than I intended. For my birthday, I would like something simple. She turned, her expression one of patient curiosity. Of course, Mom. What did you have in mind? A silent retreat, a juice cleanse to mark the new decade. No, I said, forcing strength into my words. I want to cook. I want to invite Maria and maybe Sophia and Alina. I want to make a real Polish dinner. Kielbasa, pierogi, a real cake with butter and sugar. I could almost taste it, the rich, savory sausage, the pillowy dumplings my own mother had taught me to make. It was more than a meal. It was my heritage, my story on a plate. Nadine's face fell. The patient smile dissolved into something between pity and disgust. A celebration of toxins, she scoffed, a light, humorless laugh escaping her lips. Mom, that's a heart attack on a plate. It's a festival of inflammatory, low-vibrational food. Absolutely not. Before I could even register the sting of her dismissal, she brightened, her eyes gleaming with a new entrepreneurial fire. But don't you worry. I have a surprise planned. A much better one. She clasped her hands together. I'm hosting a sacred 70th cacao ceremony right here. I've already invited all of my clients. It will be a powerful testament to your transformation. A living advertisement for what's possible when you commit to the healing path. The room tilted. An advertisement. My 70th birthday was to be a marketing event for her business. My friends, I whispered, the words feeling like dust in my mouth. Can Maria come to this ceremony? Nadine's expression softened into that familiar, condescending gentleness. Oh, sweetie, no, she said, placing a cool hand on my arm. Their energy frequency is far too low. It would disrupt the sacred space we're creating. This is for high-vibrational souls only. That was it. That was the moment the last, threadbare illusion of her care was ripped away. She wasn't just controlling my diet or my friendships. She was erasing me. She was taking the one day that was supposed to be about my life, my history, and turning it into a prop for her own. In her eyes, I wasn't her mother turning 70. I was a before and after picture, and she had no intention of letting the before part show up to the party. The heartbreak was swift, but what followed was a clarity as cold and sharp as ice. The humiliation of the cacao ceremony plan didn't just break my heart, it cauterized the wound. The lingering sadness I'd felt for months evaporated, replaced by a chilling, resolute calm. I finally saw it all with perfect clarity. In my daughter's world of auras and energy fields, I was not a person. I was a project, a testimonial, a thing to be molded and displayed. The next afternoon, while Nadine was in the living room guiding a client through a past-life regression session, their low murmurs a dull drone through the wall, I retreated to my bedroom. I didn't cry. Instead, I sat on my bed and thought. My mind, trained by 40 years of factory work to spot inefficiencies and follow procedures, began to churn. I remembered a notice I'd seen in the mail a few weeks prior, something I'd dismissed as junk. I retrieved it from the recycling bin. It was a newsletter from the Maple Creek Homeowners Association, HOA, detailing community guidelines and bylaws. My English was functional, honed by decades of reading ingredient lists and safety manuals. I spread the papers on my bed, my reading glasses perched on my nose. Then I went to my laptop, a device Nadine had insisted I get to expand my digital consciousness, and typed Maple Creek Homeowners Association Business Regulations into the search bar. The results were immediate and illuminating. Section 4.2, no commercial enterprise may be operated from a residential property without a permit. Section 4.3, any business activity must not generate client traffic beyond what is considered normal for a residential dwelling. Section 4.5, signage, advertising, and regular commercial gatherings are strictly prohibited. I read each line, then read it again. Nadine's family energy healing practice, with its steady stream of clients parking on our street, her weekly healing circle gatherings that were essentially group classes, and the fees she collected via her website violated nearly every clause. She hadn't just built a wall around me, she had built an illegal business in my house. A strange feeling washed over me. It wasn't triumph, not yet. It was the return of a sensation I thought I'd lost forever. Control. For years, my power had been in my hands, in the dough I needed, in the paychecks I earned. Nadine had tried to convince me that power lay in chakras and positive thoughts. But as I looked at the screen, I realized my real power wasn't gone. It was just dormant. It was in the deed to this house, in the laws of this community. And I, Francis Nowak, a retired factory worker, knew exactly how to follow rules. I found the phone number for the HOA's code enforcement officer. And for the first time in a year, I felt the ghost of a smile touch my lips. The phone call was surprisingly simple. I didn't raise my voice or let any emotion seep into my words. I channeled the same dispassionate tone I used to use when reporting a jam on the assembly line to the factory foreman. "Good morning," I said when the code enforcement officer answered. "My name is Francis Nowak. I live at 112 Willow Lane. I would like to report a possible violation of community bylaws." I calmly laid out the facts. The nature of the unregistered home business, the daily client traffic between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m., the group sessions on Tuesdays and Thursdays, the exchange of money for services described as energy healing. I gave him Nadine's business website address. I was precise, factual, and anonymous. I was simply a concerned resident. The officer listened patiently, asked a few clarifying questions, and thanked me for the information. When I hung up, the house was silent, but my mind was whirring with the quiet efficiency of a well-oiled machine. 3 days later, the trap was sprung. It was a Tuesday, the day of Nadine's chakra purification circle. 8 cars were parked along our quiet suburban street. Inside, Nadine was in her element, her voice a hypnotic murmur as she guided her clients, all seated on floor cushions, to visualize a cleansing white light moving through their bodies. I was in the kitchen, watching the kettle, waiting for it to boil for my own cup of tea. Then, the doorbell rang. A sharp, authoritative chime that cut right through the meditative ambience. I heard Nadine's sigh of irritation. The murmuring stopped. Footsteps padded to the door. I heard her open it, her voice starting with a syrupy, "Can I help you?" that quickly curdled. I peeked around the corner. Standing on my front porch were 2 people. A man in a crisp uniform with a City of Maple Creek patch on his sleeve, and a woman in a blazer holding a clipboard, whom I recognized from the HOA newsletter photo. "Nadine Sterling?" the officer asked, his voice polite but firm. He didn't wait for an answer, his eyes sweeping past her to the circle of confused clients in my living room. "We've received multiple complaints about an unlicensed business being operated at this residence. We are here to issue a cease and desist order for all commercial activities." The woman from the HOA stepped forward, handing Nadine a sheaf of papers. "And this," she said, her tone devoid of any warmth, "is a notice of violation of HOA covenants, which carries an initial fine of $5,000. The clients, who had paid good money to have their chakras cleansed, now looked like they'd witnessed a car crash. One by one, they scrambled to their feet, gathering their yoga mats and purses, avoiding eye contact with a stunned and mortified Nadine. They fled, whispering apologies and excuses, leaving my daughter standing in the doorway, her face a mask of disbelief and rage. She stared down the street, her eyes blazing, convinced it had to be a jealous neighbor. It never once occurred to her to look in the kitchen. The collapse was swift and total. Nadine's business, built on a foundation of whispers and perceived wellness, shattered like glass. Her clients, having witnessed the humiliating intervention, vanished. The sacred 70th cacao ceremony was, of course, canceled. Her income stream dried up overnight, leaving her adrift in a sea of fines and broken credibility. For 2 days, she cycled through fury and despair, pacing the house like a caged animal. Finally, she stormed into the kitchen where I was sitting at the table, calmly sipping a cup of black tea, real, strong black tea. "They destroyed me, Mom," she wailed, her face blotchy and tear-streaked. "Some bitter, jealous neighbor couldn't stand to see me succeed. Did you see them? Did you hear anything?" I took another slow sip, letting the warmth spread through me. I placed the cup down in its saucer with a soft click. Then I looked up, meeting her frantic gaze with a stillness she had never seen in me before. "It was me, Nadine," I said. My voice was quiet, but it filled the space between us, solid and unshakable. She stared, her mouth falling open. The histrionics froze on her face, replaced by utter, uncomprehending shock. What are you talking about? This is my house, not a spa," I continued, my words measured and clear. "My life is not a marketing tool. You didn't see a mother. You saw a project. You saw a way to sell your business. You took my friends, you took my memories, and you tried to take my birthday." The shock on her face finally melted into a tidal wave of rage. The wellness guru was gone, replaced by a furious, cornered child. "How could you?" she shrieked, her voice cracking. "I was helping you, I was saving your life. I did all of this for you." The familiar guilt-tripping, the emotional blackmail that had worked for so long, washed over me and found nothing to cling to. It was like water on stone. "No," I said, standing up. I was no longer the small, stooped woman who acquiesced to quinoa porridge. I felt as solid as the house around me. "You did all of this for you." She began to sob, a raw, ugly sound. "You're a bitter, ungrateful old woman." I looked at her, not with anger, but with a profound and sorrowful finality. "You have 30 days to find a new place to live, Nadine." A month later, the silence in the house was different. It wasn't the sterile, oppressive quiet of Nadine's wellness regime. It was a peaceful, breathing silence, filled with possibility. The scent of sage had finally faded, replaced this morning by the glorious, unmistakable aroma of sizzling sausage and freshly brewed coffee. Sunlight streamed into my kitchen, illuminating the steam rising from 2 mugs. Across the table, Maria sat, a wide grin on her face as she bit into a piece of buttered rye toast. "To us, Francis," she said, raising her coffee mug. "To real food and real friends." "To us," I echoed, the rich, dark liquid a balm to my soul. We didn't need to speak much. The comfortable silence, punctuated by the clinking of forks and happy sighs, said everything. Taped to my front door, right at eye level, was a small, handwritten sign I'd made myself with a black marker. It wasn't for anyone else, really. It was for me. It read, "MY house, MY rules, I'm 70. I'm eating sausage and drinking coffee. Welcome." I took a long, deep drink from my mug, the taste of freedom and dark roast mingling on my tongue. The ghost of coffee was gone. The real thing was so much better. I was home. Thank you for listening to my story. It's important to remember that your peace and your home are yours to protect at any age. If you've ever had to reclaim your own space, I hope you'll share your story too. It helps others feel less alone.